Who am I? Who was I? Who can I be tomorrow? On the road of life, a light shines down and paves the way for me. A ways to go.
Being gay and gray in 2015 means that we're the generation that ran concurrent, and it was called at that time the AIDS generation. And quite frankly, a lot of us are surprised to be living. We should have been dead.
Well, gay seniors are a new population, and it's really very interesting. They're invisible. In the LGBT community, there is, and particularly with gay men, has tended to be an emphasis on youth and beauty. And so the old people are just there, or sort of passé, and in the past didn't exist because many of them were killed off by, or those who might have grown old by the scourge of AIDS.
I was a hooker. What ended up happening, I think I got it off the streets from some John. And so I went back to Toronto, got tested by my family doctor, and he said, "Mr. Doak, you're HIV positive. You'll have to find another doctor because I have no idea of homosexuality, and you'll have to leave now." And I'm just shaking when he tells me that, like just shaking.
A lot of people, because they were members of the AIDS generation, were spending their money. They didn't expect to live to see 1995.
You partied your way. You spend your money, you party your way out of life, and a lot of people did. They end up saying, okay, if I'm going to die from AIDS, fine, I'm going to party my way to death.
They didn't put it into a savings account. They didn't invest it in good stocks in the stock market. They didn't have sources of additional funding for themselves.
Yeah, well, that's one of the miracles of modern medicine, is that, and you know, that's the upside, that we've got people who are living with HIV/AIDS, and in fact, it's being treated as if it were a chronic condition.
So what am I supposed to do when I retire? And what happens when I take a look at how much money I've saved? And I've saved enough money that might get me from retirement at age 65 to perhaps 70 or 72. But what happens if I suddenly discover I've got 25 or 30 years of life expectancy? How am I going to pay for that?
Well, that's what I told you. That's
The other guys, I like them. They give me a lot of advice, trying to save up some money for the rainy day, because there's a lot of rainy days that come up.
The other benchmarks are taking homosexuality out of the criminal code, getting to the point of gay marriage. I mean, we've come so far in 50 years. Where are we going to go in the next 50 years?
A community where all gay seniors can strive in comfort, acceptance, and dignity. That's all we want.
I really like that.
That's all we want in the world.
So I put no limits on the discussion, and I was surprised that instead of being health, the one that came up first and foremost for the first three meetings was housing. That was absolutely key. The subset that came up at the same time, simultaneously, was the nature of care that would be provided in these hoped-for housing, senior housing services.
Many of these people have lived through stigma, and at the point when they're old and frail enough that they require care in a care facility, they may be very nervous and feel like, oh my gosh, I have to go back in the closet. I can't be who I am because I might be mistreated. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's a form of elder abuse.
When I had a liver transplant 2 years ago, I had to go for long-term care. And in a ward there, one person came and visited me, and he was very flamboyant and stuff, and a great guy and stuff. But the person in the bed next to me ended up making a complaint to a nurse, and the nurse ended up saying, "Fraser, you can't talk about your sex life like this." And I went, "What sex life? We were just talking about when I had long hair and I was flipping down Davie Street with nice tight jeans on, and I had a nice round butt, stuff like that. What's wrong with that?" And I got awfully angry. And in a way, that anger probably gave me back the fight of staying alive.
For those people who are old today, they grew up through an era when being gay, being lesbian, being a trans person was considered as an insanity, was considered a criminal act, and they were discriminated against.
And I didn't get acceptance. My mom, when I was in my mid-20s, ended up saying, "I'm sorry. I was brought up that homosexuality was an illness and we could treat it. It isn't an illness. You were born gay and you will die gay, and you are my son. Please forgive me for what I've done." All the tears that were flowing through me at the time just escaped, and I loved my mom to the day she died in my arms.
What's important is to recognize that people who are members of the LGBT community need someplace where they can go with some reasonable assurance that they're not going to suffer prejudice, that they're not going to suffer homophobia, they're not going to get beaten up by somebody who's in the bed next to them because they found out that you're gay and they hated gays.
You know, we have the Danish care home, we have the Jewish care home, we have the Villa Cafe. Various of the religious or ethnic minorities have their own place. We do not have in Vancouver a Rainbow Seniors Project.
Well, there are 3 organizations that I know of that have come to Gay and Grey to talk with us about their plans for building LGBT seniors facilities or seniors housing. But they've all seemed to stop, and they seem to stop around the issues of zoning and cash flow to be able to build a facility in the West End, which is a very expensive piece of land.
If I go into a senior's home, and that will probably be in 20 years, I would want to be accepted. And I know there's a lot of seniors right now, and they feel like they've lost their life because they can't be who they are. And they're in seniors' homes, but they will not talk about being a homosexual. They will not talk about their lover because they don't feel accepted. And that is the final stage that I think we still have to fight.
Ways to go, some days to go, but I can only be the man I'm supposed to